that's for me, living life so merrily. It's so easy, can't you see? Polka, polka, that's for me. Polka, polka, everyone, come along, it's lots of fun.
Miguel Iterati back here at the Talk and Shoot podcast, and we are flying solo today. We're going to hit you with another update on the heavyweight boxing scene here. As an ongoing theme here, I feel like heavyweight boxing in 2015 has hit a renaissance period. You know, there's been a few years, especially the Klitschko years and stuff, where boxing has been dominated in Europe and the American scene has been down. Though that's largely the case, there's a vibrant scene growing all over the world. There's boxing at the heavyweight level and prospects popping up all over the world, and it's something that's you can be excited about. As we head in here, we're in the first week of August, and we're going to go through some results and look at some of the recent calendar. We're going to start at the top, though. Recently announced, Deontay Wilder, the WBC World Heavyweight titleist, first American to hold a world title in a long time, is going to be facing Hughie Fury on September 26th. This is fantastic news in terms of exactly what I'm talking about, the renaissance of international boxing. You've got Deontay Wilder, 34-0. He captured the belt in a relatively rugged match with Bermane Stiverne. Defended it once last June here against Eric Molina. But the common thinking on Wilder, even though he's 34-0 with 33 knockouts, is he started boxing late. He's a huge athlete and big and athletic, strong. But because he started boxing late, real boxing technicians feel they can pick him apart, and they feel he's a susceptible champion. So what do we have here is that we got Hughie Fury, 16-0, out of England, stepping up into his first world title fight. Hughie Fury, obviously the cousin of Tyson Fury, so that's another one of those interesting points and things that could pop up here. So Tyson Fury, obviously, and we'll get into this real quick here in a little bit, is facing Vladimir Klitschko in October for the world titles that Klitschko has. And here's his cousin Hughie Fury facing Deontay Wilder a month earlier. There's the possibility that Hughie Fury could be a world champion before Tyson Fury. And, in a fighting family, a family like the Furies where, they learn from their parents and uncles and they have generations that go back with the sweet science. That type of thing is important. So that's a feather in the cap of Hughie. Hughie is his own fighter. He's not as big a mouth as Tyson Fury. And he's big too. He's 6'6", but he's not as tall as Tyson either. And he's come along on his own in his own right. He's been taking his career, at a measured pace as well. And he's now at 16-0. And this is a big step-up fight for him. He just fought here at the end of July. Took on a veteran, George Arias. Arias 56-12 record. And basically, Fury cruised to a decision there. So, Hughie Fury will be in the next Deontay Wilder title defense, and that's one of those fights where, again, you got a guy like Hughie Fury, who comes from a boxing background, has been doing it since he was a kid. Looking at a raw athlete like Wilder, he's got to feel, I'm going to be able to pick this guy apart. So we will see. For Wilder, I think it's a very wise choice. Hopefully he has some good money in it. Getting into the British scene, the locale of the fight's not announced yet. So maybe if he goes over to England and gets a payday, comes out of there with a win, I mean, he's got to think he can beat Hughie Fury. It's a hell of a stretch from Hughie Fury to Alexander Povetkin at this point in their career, Povetkin being Wilder's mandatory. So that's an exciting fight to take a look at when that pops up. Really just to gloss over here, because what we have is Vladimir Klitschko and Tyson Fury on October 24th at the Esprit Arena in Dusseldorf, Germany. And Klitschko's got his WBO, WBA, IBF, and IBO world titles on the line there. So, we'll see how that fight goes. Fury obviously is going to go in as an underdog, but he's got the confidence. He's all over. He's talking vulgarities all over the press already, trying to build up things for this fight the way he normally does. And we will see if he comes out on top. That's a nice wrap it's going to be a nice end of the year or wrapping up the year for the Fury family. If just the fact that they are in title fights together in the second half is nice, and quite an accomplishment. Should one or both of them pull off the wins, and then they end the year as title holders of all the world titles, you could say that the Fury family really took a major step in boxing history there. So they've got to be pumped up over that. But let's get through some of the other stuff that's been going on over here in the heavyweight division. First of all, sticking with results from July, the American scene is still basically garbage in terms of heavyweights. And I mean, I hate to say it because I know that, there are a lot of individuals out there, putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the sport and stuff like that. But we're really in a downtime. And the promoters continue to try to recycle Chris Arreola. And Arreola fought here on the Premier Boxing Champions event down in Texas in mid-July. And he took a draw to Fred Cassie, and that was unexpected. Obviously the couple losses to Bermain Stivern in the last couple of years kept him from a world title. He's been trying to bounce back from that, and here he did not look good. So Arreola, again, whatever he represents in terms of American or, a world boxing scene, something, it's probably on the downside. I'd like to see less of Chris Arreola and more of some other young up-and-comers. The recycling thing just doesn't sit well in the modern era. We got a lot of new blood coming up from other areas of the world. One of those guys, this guy's a dangerous guy, I think, and he's on the books here for a fight in August as well. And this is Australia's Lucas Brown. Now, Lucas Brown, people might take a look at him and with the tattoos and some of the bravado and stuff, they might sell him short a little bit in terms of technique or maybe a notch below in terms of he's more of a brawler and stuff. And looks can be deceiving. This guy's actually a very, a dangerous boxer. He's 22-0. He's got 19 KOs. He's dabbled in MMA and fought, several fights in that type of rules and done reasonably well. One of his losses in MMA, I know, is to Daniel Cormier, who currently holds the UFC's light heavyweight title. And was a heavyweight at one point. Brown is 6'4", like I said, he's 36. He may be the most mature guy ready to step up in terms of he's been looking for a big fight. Unfortunately, with the amount of exposure he gets in Australia, he's far away, screaming for attention kind of thing. But he's kept a good record there. In his last outing late last year, he beat Chauncey Welliver, well past his prime, fighting over 300 pounds. That doesn't say much. But prior to that, he went the distance and got a win over Andrei Rudenko, who was undefeated at the time. Rudenko was 24-0, and that was for a handful of the regional titles there. So Lucas Brown, he's going to fight in mid-August here at the Melbourne Pavilion. He's facing Icho Lorenas in a 12-round bout. He's putting his WBA Intercontinental belt on the line. Lorenas, an Argentinian, 15-3 record, and there's not much more that could be said for him. I'm thinking very similar to Irineo Costa of Brazil. This could be a big guy to get some ring time in with as Brown looks for another fight. I'm rooting for Lucas Brown. I'd like to see it because I know that at least he will bring it in terms of action and stuff. Also, just to bounce back and forth here, last July here, at the end of July, we had Britain's Derek Chisora return to the ring. Chisora, who won his match against Bega Lobjanidze by knockout in the first round. So Chisora looked pretty good. He came in weighing 253, which is about 15 pounds more than where he was for his peak point when he fought Fury the second time. So that's something to watch there. But Chisora always somebody, he's still 31 years old really, so it's always somebody to keep an eye on, especially when you're looking for opponents for British guys like Anthony Joshua and things. So we'll get into Anthony Joshua here in a little bit. keeps going through here. Let's stick with the British because, man, and let's stick with results too, because we had David Price fight last month against Erkan Tepper. Tepper, little-known fighter out of Germany, maybe I believe he's got a Turkish descent, and he was 14-0. David Price is David Price in terms of the story we're all familiar with, I guess, by now. To gloss over it, Olympic bronze medalist, 6'8", at one point was a very highly regarded heavyweight. And, doesn't lack for confidence. He's not a huge big mouth like Tyson Fury is, but he doesn't lack for confidence. And he turned pro, and after the 2008 Olympics, and he came in and ran his record to 15-0, which is impressive. A win over British veteran Audley Harrison, and a couple of other things like that led him to believe that he was going to be, a factor on the world scene, and he took what would be termed a step-up fight against American Tony Thompson. Now, Tony Thompson's not flashy, but especially around this time in 2013 when he took these fights, when Price took the fights with Thompson, was already in his 40s and stuff, but he was one of the most dangerous American heavyweights just based on experience and ring time and size and what he does, his style. And Thompson knocked out Price, and Price took the confident route and signed for a relatively fast rematch with Thompson, and Thompson knocked him out again. That put a little bit of the brakes on Price's career. However, Price did what he had to do. He got back in the ring and strung out 4 wins in a row, a couple of them on stoppages. None of them were that type of impressive outing, though, that, people were really talking about David Price, for the next level or anything like that. Price was clamoring for a big fight. Everybody wants to fight Anthony Joshua, and we'll get to that in a minute, but everybody wants to fight Anthony Joshua in England, and Price was no different, calling out the Olympic gold medalist from 2012. But anyway, so he faces Erkan Tepper in July of this year, and he was a big favorite heading into the fight, up to minus 350 in terms of the lines, and the vacant European heavyweight title was on the line. So a win here would put Price back into the conversation, or at least, he was going to put himself back in the conversation. Would it be a 5th win in a row here? But it didn't go that way because Erkan Tepper knocked Price senseless, and he did it in the second round, and Price just looks awkward and big and slow at this point, whereas he, had moderately good athleticism when he was younger. Now in his 30s and he's starting to slow down. It's become easy to hit him. Tepper, a very straightforward fighter, tough and can take some punishment, but Price had nothing for him. And, it's a shame to see. Tepper now is actually in some of the top 10 rankings based on that win, though. So you've got a 15-0 fighter that, crashed the party here and basically derailed Price's career. I'm not sure, Price is going to be a heavyweight commodity in these booming times. I think what you see there is a fall from grace from him. Anyway, so we will continue down through the path here, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit of Anthony Joshua here, because there's some interesting situations here. Let me take a step back, and I apologize for that, but let me take a step back and continue going through some results. This past weekend, on the 1st of August, you had British heavyweight Dillian Whyte knock out Irineo Bito Costa Jr., the Brazilian journeyman, in the first round. And Dillian Whyte is now 15-0, and he is sending signals that he's ready for a big fight. Now, what makes Dillian Whyte interesting and why he's suddenly a hot commodity and on the map is that he owns a victory over Anthony Joshua in the amateur ranks. Now, obviously, I've had a very respected professional fighter tell me that, the amateurs feel like a sprint and the pros feel like a marathon. They're just completely different ball game in terms of what could happen. Obviously, Joshua's gone on to major success and stuff, but Dillian Whyte, big and strong and with a win and some confidence, is being talked about as a potential Anthony Joshua opponent. This fight with Costa Jr. Costa Jr., put it this way, 17-4 record, 17 wins in Brazil, 4 losses outside of Brazil. But he's a big, sturdy opponent that, has been fighting, guys like Joseph Parker and Christian Hammer and a few of the prospect types, and getting ring time in with them and stuff. So White comes along and knocks him out in the first round, which is a solid job. White is set to appear next on September 12th, and that's going to be a very interesting situation there, because what you have on September 12th is you have the O2 Arena booked for Anthony Joshua versus Gary Cornish. White will appear on that card as well. White's opponent has not been announced yet, but now let's talk Anthony Joshua. Here he is. Anthony Joshua, 13-0 at the moment, and set to fight Gary Cornish, who's 21-0. The vacant Commonwealth belt is on the line. This isn't quite the fight that Anthony Joshua was talking about as in terms of a step-up fight, but the Dillian White situation, popped up. Dillian was definitely considered for this September date. It looks like what they're going to want to do here is obviously get that fight done by the end of the year. Joshua's not a guy who likes to take a lot of time off between fights. I think he's going to look to take the Commonwealth belt, beat Cornish. Cornish has a good record. There's not much on his pro record that would indicate that he's ready for a guy like Joshua even now. You assume White will win on that card, that they'll find the right opponent to make him look good. The British promoters are very good at that. And that you will get Anthony Joshua and Dillian White by the end of the year. And at some point, you're going to get Joshua, who has to step up, into bigger competition. But these are fights that are noteworthy because, he's getting his ring time in. He's building up his record. And now you're starting to get a little bit of the ability to tell a story behind him with the amateur win and that sort of stuff. And there's going to be some legitimate build-up to that fight. So that one is going to be an interesting fight on the British boxing scene. British boxing heavyweights, right now really are, really adding a lot of color to the sport. You got both of the Furies. You got Anthony Joshua coming up. You got, David Haye, who's always out there talking and not fighting. Chisora came back, who's, could be a little bit of a loose cannon as well and is talented. So in Britain alone, you've got some great stuff going on. But I'm going to take us as far away from Britain as we can, and we're going to head over to New Zealand right now. A little bit more results and a little bit more of matches announced. Now, this is going to be a very interesting situation here, and I've been talking about this for a long time. You got Joseph Parker, who I consider the number 2 rated heavyweight prospect in the world right now, behind Joshua. Parker, 23 years old. Parker, 15-0 with 13 knockouts. He is coming off a big first-round knockout this last weekend on August 1st in Australia, against Australia in Bowie Tupou. The fight took place in New Zealand, and he knocked him out in the first round. Tupou, big, muscular, experienced fighter. And Parker's just kind of showing how far along he's come, taking him out, making short work of him. Now, Parker's next outing is really going to be interesting. It is set for 10-15, and it is also set for New Zealand, and he will be hosting Cali Meehan. And now this is a nice rivalry fight down, when you want to set differentiation between the Australians and New Zealand. Parker's a New Zealander, and Australia, obviously, a little bit bigger country there. We talked about their heavyweight scene a little bit when we were talking in terms of Lucas Brown. And now you got Cali Meehan. Cali Meehan, 42-5, in his 40s, kind of more dedicated to training his son to box now. But, he always stays in shape. And he's the kind of guy that, wanted a big fight. And Parker has become that at this point. Parker, as we've talked about, the protege of Kevin Barry, New Zealand's Olympic silver medalist, best known for winning the silver medal because he could not compete in the finals. And he had advanced to the finals when Evander Holyfield was disqualified in the in the Olympics. So Kevin Barry, been around a long time, responsible for a lot of the training around Costa Zoo, has now been babying and bringing Joseph Parker along and doing a very good job of it, exposing him to training with the Klitschkos, exposing him to training in Las Vegas. I saw recently where they were talking about the condition Parker's in terms of at 23 years old, when they can compare him to where he was 2 years ago, that they've just taken light years and huge steps forward. So big things are planned for Parker now. Cali Meehan, though, this is not really a joke. I think Cali Meehan is 42-5, and to be absolutely taken seriously in this fight. There's a lot of local titles on the line and stuff. Meehan last fought in November, and he got a handful of fights in. He won a tournament, so let's just say he took 2013 off, but in 2014 he actively had 4 fights. So it's not that he's coming out of retirement or anything, although he is in his 40s. He brings a great resume, 42-5, long one of the top Australian heavyweights. Has meetings with international fighters. He fought for the world title against Layman Brewster. Has fought Hasim Rahman, Danny Williams. He's got a long and strong resume. So in his last outing, he beat Shane Cameron in what was another one of those local duels. And here what you have is he will be Parker's next test. And I like that they put it out in October. That fight's announced for October 15th. You look for Meehan to get a real good training camp in and take this fight extremely seriously. I don't think it's a situation where he needs the money or anything like that. I think this is a situation where you've got a very prideful boxer stepping up to take a challenge, and that's what Parker's become. I look for Parker to make some big noise after this fight. I think Parker will obviously likely come in as the favorite in this one. So as we continue now, we've got Alexander Povetkin is kind of like one of the lost men here. Povetkin is the WBC's mandatory fight for Deontay Wilder. And, Povetkin's sitting around waiting for that fight. Povetkin 29-1 with 21 KOs, a very good technical fighter, one of the top guys, a little bit of power in his punches too. Only loss, obviously, to Klitschko. So he's in a situation where he lost to Klitschko back in October of 2013, and he's won all his matches since then by knockout. And his matches are not against chumps. He fought Manuel Char. Char at the time had a 26-1 record. Char is still rated. Carlos Takam, also another rated fighter. He had a 30-1 record at the time they met. And he also defeated Mike Perez, who's 21-1. So in terms of the competition level that Povetkin's been maintaining, you could obviously argue that it's higher than Wilder's. And he's chomping at the bit for that fight. He just can't seem to make it happen in terms of, connections and stuff. I mean, Wilder should want to stay away from Povetkin. I don't think it's a good fight for him. And that's something that, his handlers have probably been, working on in terms of, let's just try to work around this, see what we get here. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and delve back into American scene boxing, because on August 14th, at the Prudential Center, you've got Antonio Tarver coming back. Tarver, 46 years old. Obviously a very talented in his day, and he must see something in the heavyweights, especially when you consider the same effect of Deontay Wilder, where he's got to think, man, I've been boxing all my life. This guy picks it up. This guy, I've forgotten more about boxing than Deontay Wilder knows. That's just got to be where Antonio Tarver and guys of that record. There's another one of those guys that we'll get into here in a minute. Tarver is not an easy fight. He's fighting Steve Cunningham. Cunningham, to me, is one of those guys that you have to root for in terms of boxing. Hardworking, really more suited in the cruiserweight division, I think, than operating at heavyweight. But obviously, you do what you have to do, and he does have a family issue in terms of a sick daughter who's in, operative states of, trying to keep her with us. And, she's just 9 years old. So that's a lot of pressure on Cunningham. Cunningham's coming off a loss. Tarver's won a handful of fights here in a row to get his rating up. And, Tarver's looking for a title shot at some point and, maybe one last payday. Tarver obviously also involved with bringing along the career of his son, Tarver Jr., so there's that. But Cunningham is coming off a loss. He took a loss to Vyacheslav Glaskov in what was a rugged fight up at the Bell Center this past March. Little bit of hard luck there for Cunningham. Cunningham, though, comes in weighing about 210 for that fight. So it's a situation where he is still a very small heavyweight. And we will see how it goes for him. But that he's worth fighting. We'll see what... if he beats Antonio Tarver, that should derail Tarver's run here. But if Tarver wins, you're going to keep continuing to hear that Tarver wants a world title shot and stuff. Now, this is interesting news here, and this is coming up on short notice as well here. You got on August 8th, couple of days away in St. Louis, promoted by James Toney. You've got the return of James Toney, and that's a little bit one of those things that, it remains to be seen whether that hurts to say. I got a feeling, unfortunately, Toney, all-time great, 76-9-3 record, former world champion and stuff. Now fighting at heavyweight, and, after his run in the UFC where, it was much ado about nothing. And, it's just, I don't see James Toney continuing to learn and continuing to, refine his game. I think he's going to come in and perhaps try to make a run at the heavyweight division as well. Just, again, here's a guy who's got to look at Deontay Wilder and think, God, I have forgotten more about boxing than this guy knows. And that's, I think, one of the things that's happening with guys like Toney and Tarver that are coming out. Anyway, James Toney, if you're paying attention, August 8th is facing Charles Ellis. Charles Ellis, a 9-3-1 record. Prior to that, we haven't seen Toney box since 2013. In 2013, he went over to England. I guess he was trying to mount a little bit of a comeback. He had an active 2013, and he went to England to be part of the Prize Fighter series, the Prize Fighter tournaments. And he won his first fight, and he lost by majority decision to Jason Gavern. And, Gavern is a real journeyman. That loss should have been a signal to somebody like Toney that, the skills are not where the heart is anymore, and that it might be time to give it up. But now here he is back after, having more than a year and a half off to face Charles Ellis. So it will be interesting to see what James Toney comes in. Obviously, on talent alone and on what he knows of boxing alone, he should beat most guys. So I don't think he's going to be in an extremely difficult fight there in terms of what we're finding. That looks like what we've got going on right now all over the heavyweight world. I'm happy to announce, obviously, the Cali Meehan Joseph Parker fight, the Anthony Joshua Gary Cornish fight, and what you also have announced is Hughie Fury taking on Deontay Wilder. So definitely exciting times in the heavyweight division right now. All the belts are up in play. The big world titles are up on the schedule at least. And you've got a lot of people sitting there circling like vultures, waiting for things to play out and see how it goes. So we will take a look. We'll wait for some of these things to shake out, get some results in, get some new fights announced, and we'll come back to the heavyweight scene here at the Talk and Shoot podcast. I'm Miguel Arati, heavyweights. I've been talking shoot.